Just wanted to find out about your time at probably one of the biggest Word of Faith churches.
The basic fundamental thing is that Jesus didn't just die for your sins. He died to make you rich, materially, physically rich on this earth with physical, material possessions. And then also maybe physical healing. But that was the focus, was more on about the money. The blood covenant, as put forward by theology, there's a book, there are teachings, it's all available online.
Yes.
Basically goes into the whole doctrine that what God promised Abraham in the Old Testament, when he made his promises to him, that he would get land and he would have lots of children and he would be wealthy and he would be blessed beyond all measure in this earth, that we as Christians can basically appropriate the same promise for us today. That Jesus died to make that same promise available to all Gentiles, all Christian believers today.
And during your time there, if that is the case, were all the Christians healthy and rich?
No. No, not at all.
Yeah.
There was definitely the effort by a lot of people to appear that way. It was a lot of focus on image, a lot of focus on appearing happy and awesome and everything's going great, but in reality, people suffered the same kind of troubles that anyone would suffer anywhere else. People struggled with finances in their daily lives, they struggled with health issues and so on and so forth. There definitely was no magical sort of super prosperity going on in reality. It was more of a veneer, an image that people try to put on because, it was all this focus on positive speaking and positive confession and speaking well about yourself so that in case you said anything negative, you wouldn't bring a curse on yourself and blah, blah, blah. It was all that stuff. So it was all about appearing a certain way so that, if you believe well enough or you appear a certain way in a positive sense, that all these positive things would come to you, which I found to be confusing because I had secular friends who believed the same thing, where if you just believe hard enough and, you'll have, if you confess positively in your mind and in your heart, like you will get everything you confessed. What you put out into the universe, you'll get back. That's basically what they taught, and that's basically what everyone tried to live out. There was a big focus on that, which led to a denial of reality in many cases. People hid their troubles from one another because you couldn't go to a brother at the church and share that you were going through something tough, that you were struggling with X, Y, or Z, because you would appear to be a failure as a Christian or whatever, and you would be condemned rather than helped.
Now, it's interesting from your testimony that you were then part of the band, and at the time you were not really committed even as a Christian.
Yeah, so, I was asked to play on the band purely on the basis of my musicianship. No questions were asked, no discussion was gone into about my status as a Christian, whether I believed or not. I think there was some assumption that I was, but there was no sort of discipleship or anything like that going on. I was hired, like all the other band members there, hired to play, like a session musician would be hired to play for any, the Barnyard Theatre or something. You're just given the music, told to go learn it, you get paid a salary at the end of every month, and that's all they require of you. So that's that. That's the circumstances under which I was employed by the church. As such, I saw myself as an employee, not a member of the church. And yet I would be tasked, along with the other band members, with leading worship every day, with Christians coming to church and trusting that their worship leaders were doing their duty unto the Lord faithfully. But really, most of those band members were there for the paycheck, and that was that. There were some genuine believers on the band, for sure. I don't want to claim that they were all atheists or anything. But there also were a number of guys who were known non-believers who would come for the money and go home again. I mean, it went so far as there were guys who would, after the worship service, would go across the road and smoke a bit and then come back for the second service, and maybe even go and get high and come back later. I don't know if the leadership knew about that.
Suppose that then explains the momentum at second service.
Perhaps. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if the leadership knew about all of those goings on, but the point is no one checked, no one cared, there was no, any
no
investment in people's, no oversight into that. It was just about the money. We were session musicians, it was a job, and we didn't care. So many of us didn't care about anything except just playing the music. And you know what, it was a cool opportunity to play music. It was a cool band. It was professional guys. They really talented guys. It was the best of the best. A lot of those musicians in the band were from known, famous bands from elsewhere, secular bands and stuff like that. There were popular, famous musicians being employed to play there, so that the music was of a really high standard, and it was great. You can go there today, and the worship's hot. It's like a real concert. You get it's a real performance. You got the lights, you got the cameras, you got the artists really jumping around on stage and feeling it, and it's quite a show. So it's appealing. It's appealing to a worldly mindset. It's definitely appealing. And what I can say is, Christian or not, a lot of the people on the band, myself included, were more concerned about enjoying the music and feeling special because we were performing. It was a show. So there was an issue of, there was an element of pride, among the members, definitely, about putting on a good show, performing. We were told, we were instructed to perform more. It was unacceptable to just stand there and play your instrument. You had to jump around, you had to look animated, you had to put on a good show for the audience. Why that mattered, I don't know, but it mattered.
You since went on to actually have a relationship with the Lord, but it didn't come from that type of Christianity. What changed? What happened? How did you become a Christian?
Well, the thing is, while being in that church and playing on the band and seeing what goes on, I mean, I would stand on that stage and look at the kind of people coming into that church. And it would be mostly lower income, middle to lower income people coming there desperate for a financial blessing of some kind. People in a tough place, who need help, who are struggling to pay their bills, who are having a hard time. And they come to a church like that because they get promised that they're going to have all their problems solved if they just do X, Y, and Z, if they just give more to the church. Just give more, give more, give more. There's always the emphasis, give more, so that you can have all your financial blessings resolved for you. Tithe, give 10% of your salary to the church. It wasn't good enough that you gave 10% of your salary to a charity up the road, or to a no, you had to give it to that church, and that was the key. And then God's going to bless you, and you're going to have all your financial problems resolved. And I saw people come in there and give everything they had, and I just couldn't shake the feeling that they were being fleeced. It was a racket. People having their money taken from them, and there was no blessing coming back to them. There was no guarantee. You might have the odd occasion where, probably through sheer coincidence, some people did get lucky and maybe got a windfall of some kind after giving, but I don't believe it was necessarily the Lord's doing. It was just coincidence sometimes. But for the most part, there was just zero. I mean, these promises were empty. For the most part, it was an empty thing. The church was just getting richer and richer, the pastors were getting richer and richer, and people were suffering. And from the pulpit, from the stage, from where I stood, I could see this happening on a weekly basis, again and again. And I just grew angrier and angrier and angrier. And I mean, I wasn't even really a believer at that stage. I didn't really believe all this Christian stuff. not really. But even so, I could see that this was a a false thing. It was a racket. People were being deceived, and I got so angry that I eventually, out of just my conscience, just couldn't take it anymore. I could not be involved there, and I eventually quit my job there. And yeah, I lost a nice job. It was a nice, easy job, and I gave that up because I just couldn't deal with being part of such a thing anymore. It just felt wrong. As a secular person, it felt wrong. I couldn't take it, and I denounced the whole Christian faith altogether. I was just like, I have had enough. I'm not going to play these games anymore. I'm not even going to pretend for my family's sake or anyone else's sake that I'm going to be Christian. I'm going to live worldly because at least I'm honest. But praise the Lord, He worked in my heart in a completely new way. Years down the line, I started to question the meaning of life, and I went and did some research on the history of the church and the history of where Christianity came from, and I studied a number of different world religions to try and get to the truth. I went into Buddha. I didn't become a believer in any of them. I just studied them. Buddhism, what's the other one? Islam. All these different major religions, and Hinduism, and when I came across Jesus, reluctantly, I didn't want to believe it, but when I came across that, and I had to, give it its fair due, and so I studied it as well, and I just came across the historiosity of Christ, that he really was here. He really walked this earth and said what he said and did what he did, and that alone was impressive. I mean, he was an amazing man. But when I got to the death and resurrection and the overwhelming evidence that he rose from the dead, that sort of hit me like a ton of bricks, that sure, if he really rose from the grave like that he's real, what he said was real, and it just wrecked me, and I found myself on my knees giving my life to the Lord in my closet at home. And then I realized what it really meant to be a believer, what it really meant, because then I read my Bible for myself, not through some preacher. I read it. And I realized what God was talking about when he said to have faith, when he said to trust him. Faith is trust. It's trusting the Lord, that he knows best, that he has a plan, not just for me, a greater plan that involves all of us, every person that he loves, everyone. And my job is to trust him and trust that he has my back. He's got it. He's got it sorted out. And whether I suffer in this life or have much in this life, it doesn't matter, because I have such a reward waiting for me one day. I get to be with him. I get to have everything because I'm a child of the Lord. When I die, I get to be in heaven with him.
So, Darren, in your opinion, then, being a follower of this doctrine, being a supporter, being someone who fully embraces it, what does it eventually lead to?
In a nutshell, you could call it pride. Pride of life, me, my image, what I have, my position in life, my money, my this, my this, my that, me, what I want, my hopes, my dreams, my ambitions, and you kind of forget about what Jesus taught and what Jesus showed when he walked on this earth. He taught us about love, real love, the agape type love, which is 100% selfless. It's devoid of self. It's sacrificial. It's always about the other person. Jesus showed us this through many examples, through the washing of his disciples' feet, for example, through the way he just healed people and gave of his time and his, to people, to the point where he even died on the cross for us, for everyone. He served us to death. That is love.